Andrew, thank you so much for being here. I have so many questions about accounting and finance in general, and I'm so excited to ask you all of these questions. But before I do that, please introduce yourself, what you do, and how long you've been doing it.
Well, yeah, my name is Andrew Mahorn with L&M Accounting Solutions, and we consider ourselves the small business finance department. That's everything from bookkeeping, payroll, sales tax, and of course consulting, and then right up to year-end filing for corporate, individual, and not-for-profits.
Awesome. So you work with a lot of self-employed individuals.
I do, yes.
So do I, from a mortgage standpoint. And I know that qualifying for a mortgage for self-employed individuals looks quite different than someone who is working for someone else. Do you have any advice for self-employed individuals who want to purchase real estate?
Yeah, the first thing is always have reports available to provide to the bank that yes, this is my income and I can afford this mortgage.
Right.
A lot of situations that I come across for small business owners or self-employed is that they're working, they're making money, however, they're unable to provide reports or show the bank how their income works and what their expenses are.
Right.
So I know there's like a stated income program
Yes.
for people like that, but typically from my perspective, I see a lot of people who are unable to communicate their income with the banks.
Right.
And so that's where I step in and help them with that.
And what's difficult about it is it's not how much you can afford. It's what you can prove you can afford. And that's why a mortgage broker and an accountant working so closely together and a self-employed individual having a team of people that's going to help them succeed in purchasing real estate is really important, right? Mm-hmm. Because a mortgage agent is able to communicate to an accountant kind of rough numbers of where qualifications would look like, right? So it's also important that there's a teamwork aspect for your client as well, right?
Yeah, I come across a number of situations, actually, even last week, where a client of mine wants to qualify for a home he wants to buy. And so I basically told him, well, the reports are ready to go, but you need to talk to your mortgage agent to tell me what income and what type of income that you need, and I'll create that. I'll create your T4 and your T5 according to what the mortgage agent says, because of course you're the expert on what the bank requires.
Absolutely.
So small business owners are also in a great position to have more control over their income, or at least what their income says, to provide that documentation for the bank.
Yeah, absolutely. Out of curiosity, since you work with so many self-employed individuals, I know there's some misconceptions on when you should or should not become an incorporated business owner. From an accountant's perspective, when should a self-employed individual become incorporated?
That is a very vague question, and there isn't any one particular answer.
Right.
The answer that I like to give is depending on the nature of the business, if there's a lot of liability, then I would suggest incorporating right away, because a corporation is a separate business entity in the eyes of the government, and that provides another layer of liability.
Right.
Aside from that, I would also recommend incorporating at around $60,000 profit mark, because at that point you can really start to see the tax advantages between being a sole proprietor and the owner of a corporation.
And the owner of a corporation. Mm-hmm. You can also own real estate in a corporation in comparison to owning it as an individual.
Yes.
Do you recommend owning real estate in a corporation? Are there pros and cons?
Definitely. It depends on what the real estate is used for, and the percentage that it is used for business purposes. So I wouldn't completely recommend that a business owner purchase their own personal house as their principal residence under the corporation, because at that point, even though the corporation may be paying for it, because such a small portion of it may be used for business purposes, a lot of the benefit is still considered a taxable benefit. So I wouldn't completely recommend that. But aside from that, yes, it is definitely beneficial for a corporation to own real estate through the business owner, on behalf of the business owner, because there are a number of tax advantages available with that come with that, especially when it comes time for that building or that real estate to be sold.
Right. Out of curiosity, the year 2022 has brought on a lot of challenges for a lot of people, but self-employed business owners, have felt a lot of impact from the Bank of Canada movement in 2022, and you work every day with small business owners. And I'd really like to know your input on what struggles you have found small business owners have felt because of the Bank of Canada movement in 2022.
Well, those challenges related to the increase in interest rates are not necessarily, they don't present particular challenges for only small business owners. It's really across the board.
Across, of course.
But even going back to our first question, when you're talking to the bank for a mortgage, and even now, those reports and the ability to prove your income and communicate your income to the bank is even more important.
Right.
Yeah, because before, when interest rates, earlier this year and prior, when interest rates were record low, it was a lot easier to qualify for a mortgage. But now that rates are, 5, 6, sometimes 7%, the banks are being more strict on who they're providing mortgages to. So they require more documentation, more explanation as to whether their borrowee can actually afford the mortgage.
Right. And what about business loans? Have you seen that be more difficult to qualify for? Is affordability a challenge?
Oh, definitely. Interest rates across the board, not only for mortgages, but all types of business loans. Really the same thing. Banks, whether it be a traditional bank or a non-conventional bank, or even Business Development of Canada, their interest rates are all increasing, and they are more strict with who they provide their funds to. And so paperwork, documentation is just more important.
Yeah, oh, absolutely, because affordability, not only for mortgages, but just in general, right? It's a challenge. And I can imagine that the pandemic and the decreased revenue that some businesses may have seen would also challenge a bank or a BDC of being able to prove that you can afford this. Because typically with business owners, they'll look at historic income, right? So if over the course of the pandemic, some businesses felt that pressure, that doesn't help the affordability now.
Yeah, and even in those situations, that's why comparisons are so important. 2020, 2021, and 2022 may look kind of funny or wonky compared to previous years. And so that's why comparison to maybe 17, 18, 19 compared to more recent years may be beneficial. Because then you can at least explain to the bank, well, these were proper years, these are years of what I'm used to. However, maybe 20 and 21 were affected by the pandemic, but we expect things to return, or we expect our revenue to return back to pre-pandemic levels, so we can afford this mortgage.
Is that also why you think it's so important to have the same accounting team for a specific period of time, so that you have kind of familiarity on reports? Do you think that's key?
That definitely helps. It's always best to build a relationship with your service providers. With that, there's consistency, there is a level of trust, and
understanding.
So, definitely an understanding. And so with that continuity, with that consistency, it's a lot easier to, even especially for the business owner, to communicate their financials to the bank, or for the service provider, the accountant, or the firm who have that familiarity to actually step in and take over that communication with the bank on behalf of the business owner. Right,
absolutely. Andrew, thank you so much. You've given us so much valid and good information for us to use in terms of accounting and business owning a business and whatnot. So thank you very much for being here. I really appreciate it. Thank you.